Should start. Whoops.
I've been speaking long enough. This stream was never meant to be a single voice reverberating against the walls in the dark.
That'll be about 1 minute.
Every street corner has a story. Every face carries a different truth. We build this world together through contrast, through conversation, through the questions we ask one another. So take a seat. The spotlight shifts and another voice enters the stream. Let's listen to where they've been and where they're going.
All right. I believe we should be live here. Welcome, guys. Today we have Edan Yago from BitcoinOS. He'll be speaking with us for about 30 minutes. Edan, welcome. Thank you for taking the time to talk with our smaller community today.
Small but beautiful, important community.
For sure. Thank you so much. So briefly, just as an introduction, I was curious if you could walk us through your journey. I know you were involved in Bitcoin, I think as back as or as early as 2011, right? And maybe walk us
Yeah.
through how you got here through your early ventures. I know you worked on a few other projects to eventually founding BitcoinOS.
Well, yeah. So I've been obsessed now with Bitcoin for almost a decade and a half. Bitcoin and crypto more generally. My first encounter was I was in a university basement working on machine learning and read the wrong white paper. And the paper I read, the Satoshi white paper, blew my mind. It described for the first time a realistic and actually later I realized live form of cryptographic property rights, which provided the internet for the first time with property rights. For the first time, the ability to establish rights outside of the purview of borders or governments without the need for recourse to violence, with the ability for people to interact without intermediaries. There was just so much there. By the time I'd finished the paper, I had spilled my coffee all over my computer. I had emailed everyone I knew, and I told them that they had to be involved in this. Everyone ignored me, but my life was changed forever.
Wow, so you immediately saw that from reading the white paper. Were there other, experiences or development beforehand that allowed you to see all of that? Like, did you have this natural, like, libertarian mindset that developed so that your mind was like prepped and ready to understand the potential?
For many reasons, I've been deeply mistrustful of government's ability to protect rights if left unfettered. I was deeply concerned about growing government intervention in the economy. This was a few years after 2008. I even, I had long. I think I I grew up with in a mostly communist but highly radical family. Some of my family members were members of the ANC. They had been determined by the apartheid government of South Africa to be terrorists. As a young child, I was forced to smuggle gold out of the country to get money out to my family. But had always believed from a very young age, maybe because of a fascination with science fiction, that our only real solution, the only real solutions we ever developed, were technological.
Mhm.
That human innovation, ingenuity is dependent on freedom, and that the smallest minority is the individual. And so, yes, I've always believed in, I don't think a quite libertarian view,
Mhm.
uh, but certainly in the primacy of freedom and individual liberty in all things good and in all forms of progress.
I see. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you got a lot of early experience. You grew up in South Africa, right? And
Yeah.
that shaped your view to be ready to immediately digest the Bitcoin white paper a lot differently than I think, like if a random person read it, they wouldn't see that. So that's awesome. After you accidentally read the paper, um, and your mind was kind of blown, it seems like, with the ability to establish property rights on the internet. How did you go from that to, spending all of your time working on it? What was that like? Did you immediately, once you read the white paper, ha accidentally have to
I,
shift
I,
focus?
I, within a few months, moved to San Francisco to join a games company
Mm-hmm.
because I imagined that the first place we would see mass adoption of digital property rights would be in the realm of digital properties, which I thought was
Mm-hmm.
gaming. It turned out to be, but um, ever since I've been engaged in one way or another.
Oh, gotcha. That makes sense. And so your focus mainly since that point has always been on the Bitcoin side, right? Even
Yeah,
though the proof of stake side of the market has kind of exploded and the casino has gotten pretty crazy, you've kind of remained vigilant and focused
I
on.
think that almost all crypto has been a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Not a mistake in that it was created at all, but in a mistake in what was created. I think it stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of what we're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Most people think of it as software. They talk about features, they talk about speed, they talk about you know, UX, UI, and those things are important, but they miss the point.
Yep.
What we're building is not software and cannot be. If it behaves like software, if it upgrades all the time, if there are people managing it, if the code base becomes larger and more unreliable with time, if decisions constantly need to be made and changes constantly need to be made to stay up to date, then you have a system which is actively managed.
Yeah.
And an actively managed system, proof of stake or otherwise, is not a good basis on which to build property rights. It's too unreliable, it changes too often, and has too many elements of trust. And so what I witnessed struck me as fundamentally confused, um, be it Ethereum or many things, all the entire smart contract world that has sort of emerged from these smart contract chains. Technically, I think they also make many fundamental mistakes, but just in terms of first principles thinking of what is actually required, Bitcoin created something and sort of went right. Everything else went left in order to differentiate itself from Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, has been heading in the wrong direction ever since.
Yeah, I have the same view. Yeah, it's kind of forgets the original principle of what we're doing. But I guess there was just a lot of money being thrown at the space, and you develop these huge mega exchanges or casinos, and they never cared about that original value prop, or maybe don't for Bitcoin. But
I,
yeah, it's
yeah,
been it's
yeah. Whether or not they cared or not, they certainly misunderstood it.
yes, for sure. So what were the kind of moments that led you to creating BitcoinOS? Was it that like you saw the whole space going the wrong direction and you wanted to build something that was more in alignment with maintaining that core value proposition of Bitcoin and extending it? Is is that how you got to BitcoinOS?
Yes, so I've been building different things in the space ever since, and my primary concern, my primary complaint about Bitcoin has been that it is not ambitious enough, in that it created the first instance, and really only instance we have, of truly neutral, truly beyond the scope of human arbitrary decision making property rights. But it did so only for BTC. And that has two major flaws. The first is that BTC alone cannot be used without an intermediary if you don't have a degree of programmability. BTC cannot be made available to everyone if you do not have a degree of scalability. And so Bitcoin itself was too limited in its current conception to achieve what I think was the full scope of what BTC could be. And then beyond that, to truly turn this into a system for general property rights, we needed to be able to add additional assets to Bitcoin, make them programmable, and allow them to trustlessly interact with each other. And do all of this in a way which is fundamentally scalable. Now, on top of all that, to make life even more difficult, I also insist on an additional criteria, which is that all of this needs to happen without changing the base layer of Bitcoin. In other words, it needs to be built into Bitcoin as Bitcoin is today, which is a very difficult technical challenge, because remember, the whole point is that we're not building software, we're building firmware.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So what would, I guess that would be the core mission of BitcoinOS then, like you're trying to build exactly what you described, this firmware that doesn't alter anything about the underlying Bitcoin software. How did you approach that?
Yeah, so about 5 years ago, I became convinced that ZK, zero knowledge cryptography, had advanced sufficiently that we could see on the very near horizon the ability to effectively prove any type of computation to Bitcoin. And to do so at scale without changing Bitcoin. To be more accurate, at the time I thought that there would be the need for some kind of change to Bitcoin, but I determined to try and see if it was possible to do away with that need. And so we set up a research program, funding both an internal research team and external developers to work on this problem. And by the early part of last year, we realized that we almost certainly had a solution. We had a theoretical solution, which was the ability to build a ZK verifier into Bitcoin using TypeScript. And then with minimal trust assumptions, effectively Bitcoin's trust assumptions, and allow us to take ZK proofs and prove them as Bitcoin transactions. And then we demonstrated this towards the end of last year in block 853.626. And so in that block, I call it the block of revelations. Bitcoin for the first time got a brain and the eyes to be able to both see external compute and understand it. Not understand it fully, but understand it cryptographically. So understand whether or not the compute was correct or not, whether or not the compute had been performed correctly. And what that does is it allows you to have smart contracts built for Bitcoin. But beyond that, because a smart contract effectively allows you to build anything, it meant that you could do rollups. You could take entire chains and integrate them directly into Bitcoin by having the programmatic activity for example, on Litecoin,
Mm-hmm.
becomes full and proven to Bitcoin, and vice versa.
Gotcha. Uh, So in that makes sense from like a higher level view to me. Um, but I'm not that familiar with the inner
So maybe
workings of.
so let me. I've started using a prop to demonstrate it. So this is a
Okay.
piece of. Imagine this is a piece of software, right? You have certain inputs. The computation runs, and it arrives at an outcome, an
Mm-hmm.
output, right? Now,
Mm-hmm.
if you build this in such a way that not only does it arrive at an output, but that output includes a proof of the computation, then that proof can show whether or not the computation was run in exactly the right way. In other words,
Gotcha.
this becomes not just computation, it becomes verifiable computation,
Okay.
a smart. Now, in the Ethereum world and in all subsequent smart contract chains, they wanted to have verifiable compute. And so what they did is they took this entire computation, all of the VM, all of the data associated with the computation, and they shoved the whole thing
In the
into the
chain.
blockchain,
Gotcha.
to the block, which obviously is not a scalable solution, because now every single node has to rerun
Mm-hmm.
every single computation from the smallest to the most complex. So instead of building a world computer, you build a world of computers all computing exactly the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Massive redundancy. So you got verification via redundancy. That is the current paradigm. But what ZK does is it allows us to have verification via cryptography. And so what we've done is we've brought verification via cryptography. And so this can be a smart contract, or it could be a series of transactions performed on Litecoin, which are proven to Bitcoin. And so you can trustlessly interact now between the two chains once this technology is implemented on both. And so we've been implementing it and on Bitcoin, now have it running on Bitcoin. We have had over 100,000 transactions performed in this way. So transactions proving compute to Bitcoin. And we
Gotcha.
are in the process of implementing it for Litecoin as well.
That's awesome. So I understand now the basic concept. Where do people run nodes then for these layers that are actually doing the computation that are then being proven back to the main blockchain? Is there a uh,
Yes, I don't think it's necessarily accurate to call these
mhm,
layers. They don't necessarily have to be layers as such.
mhm,
Litecoin isn't exactly a layer to Bitcoin. It's a what we would call an external environment or external compute environment,
okay.
right? Yeah, so you have nodes running that. These nodes run the computation. They prove the computation, right, which is an additional compute effort, and they publish as a Bitcoin transaction these computations to Bitcoin and then verify.
Mhm.
Uh, so you do have a series of nodes, but ultimately the security assumption is the security assumption of Bitcoin transactions occurring.
Gotcha. That that makes sense. So it's live right now. You've done 100,000 plus transactions. What types of projects or experimentations are going on right now with Bitcoin OS?
Yeah, so I would say we have three primary things happening right now. We have um, people, right now, they're actually more like institutions who are utilizing the system to create smart contracts for OTC deals around Bitcoin, where no third party escrow or custodian is required. And using Bitcoin as collateral programmatically in other ways, we have issuance of different kinds of tokens. And we have experimentations around new kinds of tokens, for example, building new kinds of games or mining or DAO issuance activities on Bitcoin. These are still early experiments. I mean, this is very, very new, but that's the early activity that we're seeing right now.
I see. That makes sense. There's definitely demand in in at least the first area you pointed out, this like institutional OTC trading with no third party. That seems like at least for this current environment, something that solves a problem that people would demand today. So that's cool. How do you imagine the future of this if it's successful and people start to trust it? I know this process might take a while for people to trust the protocol and make sure that it works. Right? The experts like yourself probably have a high degree of confidence in it, but I think sometimes it just takes time for everyone else to get used to it, psychologically. How how do you envision this going into the future, both with like terms of applications, like various different types of applications that you foresee happening on BitcoinOS, and I guess the kind of the far future of how you envision this larger um, macro environment or world where uh, people actually start using Bitcoin more instead of just speculating on it. How do you look at the broader future, and how do you see Bitcoin OS?
I think three primary things. The first is being able, and this is sort of has been my primary motivation just for personal reasons, the ability to start putting your Bitcoin to work without having to trust other people or third-party services. So being able to borrow against your Bitcoin, being able to utilize your Bitcoin as collateral, even being able to generate yield or trade or you know engage in futures,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then other things like inheritance, insurance can all be mediated programmatically. The second thing is the introduction of new asset classes to Bitcoin. And so we are starting to see interest in bringing real world assets to Bitcoin, primarily initially, I think it will be stable coins, but also bonds, debt instruments, equities, you name it. I think we're in the very, very early innings of seeing a wave of assets from the physical or sort of real world begin to be registered and have their ledger and transactions and settlement maintained on chain. And the best place to do that is Bitcoin, because it is the one reliable tool for property rights. And then the third thing is being able to fix a very, very significant problem, which is that we've been talking about building the internet of value, but instead we've built an ecosystem of fragmented island casinos,
Mm-hmm.
which don't interact or speak with each other. And um, and so this is a security hazard, it's a UX problem, it's a liquidity problem. And so binding together different chains with Bitcoin acting effectively as the neutral glue between them, starting with the UTXO chains. So someone coined the phrase the UTXO bros: Cardano, Monero,
Mm-hmm.
Doge, and of course Litecoin, being integrated effectively into a giant superchain.
Gotcha. Y- Yeah, that's interesting. I'm curious as your thoughts on the future of credit in Bitcoin. That's what you talked about first, was the ability to borrow against your Bitcoin, lend it out. How do you imagine credit layers developing? Do you think they'll integrate with the traditional finance system, or do you think we'll have to build a whole different system of like credit scores and um, sort of a way to.
I think that initially, obviously, this is best if it all operates on chain. So if you're dealing with assets or stable coins or whatever the asset type you might be wanting to deal with, and that can be acquired using Bitcoin as collateral. And so actually credit scores initially won't be necessary, because instead of relying on a credit score, you're relying
Mm,
on the collateral.
yeah.
And also what we've seen more generally in DeFi. So my assumption would be that happens first. It actually is the case that there is already a extremely performant DID, so digital ID system built into Bitcoin that was built by Microsoft and has actually quite a lot of adoption. But up until now, no one's really tied it or used it for on-chain activity. It's only been used sort of to anchor off-chain activity. So eventually, I believe that we will start to see reputation and identity also being presented as effectively a token or an on-chain property.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it needs that eventually, because most of the credit that proliferates around Bitcoin and crypto in general seems non-productive or inherently speculative. That leads to these like giant just pyramids and then collapses. It'd be nice to finally see market penetration of the money and then credit layers built on top of that, and you see people borrowing with some type of digital ID that's not tied to their physical identity, where they can get funds based on, history of, I don't know, on-chain activity that's honest or something, or ability to pay it back. And you could get real productive lending for people to go out and build stuff and then return that capital instead of the kind of lending that goes on now where, you might see really high interest rates, but it's all going into this Ponzi bubble that then collapses. So that's what I'm most excited about in the like 5 to 10 years is seeing productive credit rails and sort of identification systems that aren't based on your physical ID like the current credit system is, where people can get, money based on reputation and we can assess the risk in some decentralized way to pool capital to the most productive people in this like emerging new economy. But that's seems a little bit far off, but I'm glad that you guys are building these things so that we can work towards exiting the casino and entering the real monetization phase where I think all the value will be created. Um, I have um, a few questions uh, on your views on like market adoption over like the near and midterm. What do you think the like biggest obstacles to DeFi on Bitcoin are right now? Do you think they're technical, regulatory, cultural, or
Primarily technical is by far the biggest current obstacle, and that's the one we're trying to solve. There's a huge amount of demand, but I also think that for that demand to be met, we are going to require a new kind of DeFi because it's going to be driven primarily by institutions, professional money managers, and people who are engaged far more in risk management and wealth preservation than the sort of degen activity we are used to.
mm-hmm.
And so the next challenge is going to be building out new thinking around highly secure institutional grade DeFi and then proving that it is secure.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Do you worry about the potential for governments to dislike Bitcoin? Say we have, the world is kind of getting crazy from a macro perspective. Governments are super in debt. Do you worry about if we continue down this path of debt monetization, quantitative easing, that, they might change their view on Bitcoin and some of the institutions can't provide the underlying value of the protocol because the state, shifts from supporting it to disliking it? How do you see
I
that?
used, I used to be very, very worried about that, but I now feel that Bitcoin has crossed a threshold
Mm,
where it has a degree of support, distribution, and intrinsic value that is making it a strategic asset. And so, even if many governments sought to shut it down, uh, there are going to be those who will seek to support it. And while all of this is happening, we're also seeing a diminishing of the ability for any government to impose its will globally. The world is becoming more fractured. The world is
Hmm.
becoming more multipolar, and that is exactly the environment for which Bitcoin is designed and in which Bitcoin will thrive.
Yeah, I would agree there. It that makes sense. Um, so as far as and I know we don't have that much more time because it's already been about 30 minutes. Um, but I wanted to ask you a few things. I have a giant list of questions, but I'm trying to run through it to get the ones that I wanted to ask the most. Um, so we already talked about kind of your vision, mission for Bitcoin OS, some of the current things that are happening on it. What are the most exciting like over things that you think will happen over this next year or two? The things that you're most excited for
Well,
your project
I think there are many
specifically.
things, but I'll mention one because I know this is a very Litecoin audience. I think LitVM is an extremely exciting development. The ability to bring programmability to Litecoin, to build new layers on Litecoin, and for LitVM, basically building a smart contract layer secured by Litecoin with DeFi and LTC as its native asset. I think that is um, a, a radical sort of departure for Litecoin and will introduce huge new opportunities.
For sure. Yeah, it is exciting. Were you surprised at Litecoin's like monetary growth? I'm not sure if you're paying it if you spend much time looking at the like network stats for all of these blockchains, but um, even though the value range that it's being monetized at is pretty low, it is the sort of fastest growing in terms of total daily users of any proof of work chain um, that's in the market right now. I mean, maybe Bitcoin has grown in terms of total volume sent over the chain, but as far as daily users go, Litecoin's had the best growth over the last few years. Has that surprised you at all?
I think yes, and I think it's very impressive.
Awesome. It seems like there's no talk about it in mainstream media or even crypto media that it's grown so much, probably because the price has been boring. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's nice. And last question, what exactly from LitVM are they using like your whole stack at Bitcoin OS or
They're
just
using
portions of it?
the ability to take the activity on the rollup, prove it to Litecoin. So we have quite a lot of work ahead of us. We need to integrate the work that we've done into Litecoin. We need to build the effectively the smart contracts that allow for ZK proofs from the LitVM chain to be validated by Litecoin. But um, um, yeah, so LitVM obviously will be using many pieces of technology that are not ours, but in terms of the core capacity to build the rollup and have it secured by Litecoin, they will be using Boss.
Okay, gotcha. So for all the listeners in the chat, are you bullish on Litecoin then here over the next year or so? Um, do you?
I am, and I'm bullish. Uh, I think the primary theme of the coming years is going to be far more weighted towards UTXO, far more weighted to the integration of UTXO chains into sort of a super chain. And um, um, I think that the way to position, the way that chains and platforms will position themselves to win the coming decade is by becoming integrated pieces of the Bitcoin ecosystem. Litecoin able to provide low cost transactions, the ability to provide shielded transactions via MWeb, I think these are going to prove to be very, very useful.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree with you. I think we're going to see a shift as we exit the casino phase to utility and monetary adoption. And I agree. I think we'll see, kind of the entire freedom enabling space of privacy chains and proof of work, Bitcoin chains kind of interoperate and work together. And I just view people arbing security for cost down the road between like chains. If there's high demand for settlement, we should naturally see users arb that security and costs. But cool. Are there any final uh, things you'd like to share? How can people support you or help BitcoinOS and
Well,
LitVM?
I think following, BitcoinOS's website is bitcoinos.build. The Twitter account is BTC_OS operating system. And so I would suggest following there. We have a very active Telegram group, a very, very active Discord community, many opportunities for devs to get involved. And I would also recommend taking a look, especially if you're interested in Litecoin, at the LitVM project, which I think is one of the more interesting things that is occurring right now.
Okay, awesome. Can anyone join the Telegram group?
I think so, yes.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, guys, go check that out. It would be cool because I know there's a lot of people that are interested in what's going on, and it's hard to find like updates or how close these things are to being able to onboard users or for people to experiment. So is the Telegram group in here somewhere if they want to join?
In here,
Like
the
in
tele-
on how do they access that? Is there a link?
the yeah, it's linked on the website.
Oh, okay. All right, perfect. So we have that here. BitcoinOS.build. Perfect. Any final thoughts or things you'd like to share with us? Um,
Yeah, I think a lot of things are happening right now. At exactly the same moment, we've seen the regulatory sanctioning that has frozen a lot of development in the space has been removed. The technology to make Bitcoin and by extension the entire UTXO world more useful, it's finally here. The global environment of uncertainty and fragmentation that Bitcoin was built for is
disappearing.
merging.
Mm-hmm.
Um, all of the things are coming together at the same time. And so what we're starting to see is institutions adopting Bitcoin for the exact same reasons that we did, because they want to
Mm-hmm.
have a neutral asset they can self-custody, which is free of counterparty risks. And so I think that what we're going to see is this new wave led by institutional adoption, institutional desire for collateral and for yield and risk management, and um, and I think we ain't seen nothing yet.
Awesome. Well, thanks. We'll end on that. Thanks so much, Eden. You're obviously an extremely smart, intelligent, been building, and I always appreciate the people that are, not just speculating, but working on things that will eventually be relied on by people to make the technology more accessible and usable by whoever wants to use it. So thanks so much for all the work and for taking the time today to speak with this smaller community. I appreciate it.
Thanks very much for having me.
All right, have a great rest of your day, night, and I'm sure I'll see you around.
Thank you.
Thanks. See ya. Whoops, let me recenter this real quick. All right, guys, that was really cool. Thanks to Eden for taking the time. I know he's a busy guy, and I missed the last time we were supposed to do this, so I'm glad that he was able to reschedule. Um, and thanks to you guys for showing up. I do appreciate it. That was pretty cool. You can tell uh, he he's incredibly smart in building, which is awesome. It's crazy that he's one of the few that understood Bitcoin's value prop like right away after reading the white paper. I've heard a few stories, but it's always the same kind of core ingredients. It's like someone that has had real life experience to distrust governments or thought through these things themselves, and then was also competent on the tech side where they could understand what uh, Bitcoin was actually trying to do, the problem it was trying to solve. It was the same with Eric Voskuil. Um, I'm not anywhere near their technical expertise, but uh, kind of had the same macroeconomic views as those guys. Yeah, Master. You like that he was surprised about Litecoin gaining adoption? I think it surprised everyone except I don't know. I always thought since 2017 scaling debate that this was inevitable if Bitcoin demand was high enough. It just wasn't ever talked about. Right? No popular person or anyone in the space took it seriously. But to me, it made the most sense. So it's hard. It was hard for me early on, having this idea that Bitcoin would scale horizontally through substitution, when nobody that was in the space at the time that was taken seriously even considered it. And it wasn't just Litecoin; it was just like the fact that any Bitcoin chain that followed all the same rules and the same security model, could be launched again and would gain adoption over time if block space demand was high enough to push out certain users off of BTC. I don't think it'll slow down. Um, so it's going to be interesting. But I kind of agree with him that this network of chains will eventually interoperate, and I think they will do that on these whatever credit layers eventually emerge, where people will just decide which Bitcoin chain they want to settle on and how much they're willing to pay for that security level. The only thing I think that will happen is governments can change their mind, in a weird macro world where you're seeing like fragmentation and government breakdown and massive QE money printing. I think the most likely thing they do is tighten capital controls, crack down on anything trying to evade taxes or their censorship. And I think they'll change from supporting Bitcoin to saying they just want to support their version of Bitcoin. And the same sort of repeat of 1933 or whatever with gold. But let's look at the charts for a bit. I do think we're close here on the lower time frames. I think we're ready to reclaim $100 here. Kind of similar to where XRP was at from a price standpoint here before it reclaimed this level, and then it was basically vertical from there. It sounds like Eden though is super bullish. What up, Nick? Missed the interview? It was good. Joey, can you retire soon? Yeah, maybe by March. What did you guys think of that interview? You're here for a good time, not a long time. All right. Well, let's make it a good time for you then.
Yeah.
Thanks, Eric. I think I suck at interviews.
Drawdown,
I'm always like,
chart gap, standard deviation, shrinking like trust caps, times derivative flatline, patience accruing interest, still
trying to
water,
ask
energy,
questions,
not wish
but
list, they call it dead.
not being able to verbalize them the way
Rebuilding, you can feel it in the glass. I'm sitting
I
on the
want to.
slope where the variance decays. When it finally releases, it don't drift, it reways. I'm a ghost in accumulation, talking decimals and size. Vol surface folding inward while conviction multiplies. Beta traders chase noise, I chase duration. Confidence curve tighter than the Fed's narration. Every candle a confession, every wick a scar. Patience price cheap till it prove who we are. I don't hedge fate.
I rebranded, yeah.
Compression my religion. Break out my flood. Stillness got momentum.
I didn't upload the Post Malone one. I'm still working on the video for that. I was gonna do those next. I just made the videos for the one I'm playing now and one other one. I made all the music, and then making videos takes way longer. Well, I don't know. It's just like harder for me because I had never made videos before I started doing this, and it's like 5 seconds at a time. And sometimes you don't get what you want for videos, so it kind of takes a long time. They're not going to be perfect, but I want them to be good enough. But yeah, I have so much now that it should never get old. I just wonder if people will actually listen to my lyrics, because I basically wrote the whole thesis intertwined between all the albums. Need that song on demand? I'll upload it to Spotify and Apple Music right now. I'm glad you actually like one of them, Nick. It's like some genres are better at communicating different ideas. But that whole Post Malone album is more that type of music seems easy to communicate emotions, but not much like lyrically, the depth is low. Alright, uploading this real quick. I need to cut one of these songs though. Actually, maybe I'll log off and come back later, and I'll finish the videos and upload those songs to DistroKid. Market feel my tone, entropy is sleep, dreaming of a throne. Beta boys chase noise, I chase duration. Vol curve flat, hard in meditation. You can measure heat, not belief on chain. Conviction invisible, stored in pain. That's the calculus of patience, reversion to the mean. Replace the narrative, let the ghost intervene. Pressure square, math turn to faith. Still water tense, till the dam vibrate.
pressure square. Silence hold weight. When it move, it don't drift. It restates. Equation divine, the numbers align. Compressions a prayer in a quantitative shrine. Momentum asleep, variance low. The more it contract, the harder it blow.
Did he say when he thought all this would be implemented on Litecoin? Well, Aztec did. He said he was excited about it. He said like Q1. Aztec was thinking Q1 of next year. Nick, what do you think for price here? It looks like Bitcoin's moving back up. This is like such a weird price action. Liquidate shorts and longs.
Fractals in agreement, same slope, same sign. Covariance zero, but the rhythm in sync. 3 data sets, some in the same instinct. Reflections don't lie, they converge on the cause.
Yeah, sometime at the early part of next year is when they thought it would be ready.
Patterns repeat, that's the sound of fate. Alignments speak louder than the chase. LTC, USD, BTC, the whole stack brief, correlation fade, but the story still weave. Signal in the noise if you zoom out enough. Every top and low just phase like love. You can't fake confluence, math, no tone.
Alright guys, I'm gonna go work on these videos and uploading this music so Nick can listen to it. It takes like a week to push it to all the platforms. Oh, the Flanders, order your Armani suit.
It's not coincidence.
You can just pick that up when the price goes up. Be nice if we could close this month green. Chart would look a lot different. But I think we're gonna do that. Last thing we'll check again is the similarity here to Zcash. It was leading by about 60 days. And if you take when it bottomed, first one Litecoin potentially bottoming. Actually, maybe take the second one. Yeah, 60, 70 days.
Built from pressure that code don't show. 8 years deep, not a calm explode. Hand steady while a thesis grows. They call that a
So by
break.
December,
I call that sync. I
with
see
this
that
rally,
wall starting to shrink. Charts twitch first before the systems know. Now you hear compression. It's the show. Every pause was fuel in disguise. Every doubt was
should
proof
start
I was
soon.
right. Now they watching frames
End of
realign.
October,
See it's
early
collapsing,
November,
a
if this
blink of
correlation
an
is gonna
eye.
hold.
It was never chance
But it looks good on the lower time frames now.
pressure cooking symmetry.
This this looks like the structure you see before reclaiming this level and then heading vertically. And open interest still dead. You're behind the stream. What's my iTunes? It's the same. It's just earn not gifted. It'll show up as an artist. But it takes like a week or two for the music to be pushed to Apple Music. So that stuff, I'll upload it on YouTube once I make the videos. So hopefully by tonight or tomorrow. And then those tracks will be up within a week or two. Alright guys.
Just boom, compressed time.
Yeah. I can play it for you. I'll play it right now. One time. I think it's this one.
They said I dream too loud, I said they think too small. I was building what they doubted, now they see it on the wall. Every scar became design, every loss became a line. I follow what's divine, don't beg, just align. Got receipts from every season that they swore I fell behind. Now the proof is here, see my way from the other side. It's already mine, I don't gotta fight. I've been living in tomorrow since I was 9. They can't take what's written in light. I don't wait, it's already mine. It's already mine. It's already mine. Used to feel like faith was a maybe. Now I walk through storms like it's gravy. Every no just made me steady. Every break just made me ready. They want credit, I want calm. They want trending, I want bomb. I got love that don't expire. I'm the fuel, not the fire. I don't chase the crowd. Fight. I've been living in tomorrow since I was 9. They can't take what's written in light. I don't wait, it's already mine. It's already mine. It's already
Alright. Thank you, Nick. I think it'd be interesting if this stream does do well, and then the music spreads, and some of these songs actually, like, chart. That would be insane. Right, if like one does have, like, this 100x move, I think the odds of some of these going viral could be high.
Said it's over every week, then they watch it rise again.
It needs discovery.
I don't pray for their belief, I just smile, exhale. Let the time do the talking while they run in bed. Cause I remember every doubt and surround sound.
Yeah, we'll see.
Funny now they love what they laughed about. But I ain't bitter, I just turn it loud. if I don't care when you sell? I've been riding through the lows, no, it's
I don't
just
know if it's better to
another
put the subtitles in the music videos or not.
you can cash out, fade out, wish me well.
I might do that.
I don't care if
I think it
don't care
helps.
when you sell.
Alright guys, have a good rest of your day. Might be back later. But I think the we might get a breakout here before the weekend. At least to reclaim $100.
If you know, you know. If you don't, that's okay. I don't care if I don't care when you sell. Story's still mine to tell. Yeah. Still mine to tell.
See ya.